My brother sent me an email with a link to some footage of the machine with no context at all. And I saw this thing and I was like, this is a story. There is no, whoever's driving that machine, like this is a fucking character study. Like it's this imagery is like this like surreal, slow speed, pursuit of this like tank that looks like something out of, like a war zone, and it's in a little mountain town in Colorado. The police can't do anything about it, and so the question is like, who is driving that thing, and what made him decide that this is the only course of action that he can take, which is like, a story that like I'm very interested in telling. It was definitely a terrifically complex documentary to make, just logistically speaking. The process, I mean, the most important thing is getting the story right, and choosing the right subjects and allowing them to speak in a first-hand way to what they have seen. So we started with interviews, and once the story began forming, we started to plan recreation stuff. There is a sort of there's amazing archival of the actual event, but it's the sort of the final portion of it. And some of the really critical pieces of the event, there's nothing. And so it was sort of on us to actually recreate some of those things. And so we rebuilt the machine, Marvin Heemeyer's machine. We found a D355A Komatsu bulldozer, like a giant, massive 60-ton quarry dozer from the 60s, and outfitted it with armor, like he did. And just doing that on a documentary budget is challenging. We had less time than he did. It took him, probably about 17 months all told. We had, a couple weeks. We had a great team. I had a production designer named Rob Wilson King, who's like 40 years in the business, two-time art director, Guild Award winner, who's worked with Sam Peckinpah, like he's old school. And I took him this project, and he looked at it and said, like, fuck, I have to work on this. And he knows what a documentary budget meant. So, 40 years of favors, that he pulled, I think. He brought an amazing team and a little bit of movie magic, and we were able to pull it off. We did recreate some of the destruction that wasn't captured, archivally. A big part of, what enabled us to tell this story, it's a character study primarily, first and foremost, it's a character study about sort of, how does this, like, how did this guy get to a place where he decided this was something that he needed to do? How did he get so fucking angry? And one of the sort of archival crown jewels of the project is he made tapes. He recorded about 2.5 hours of audio, sort of telling his own story, and so those are woven throughout the film. That's a great question. The chronology of the film is linear. Definitely, we're utilizing, his tapes, not entirely, in a linear fashion. But I think the goal of the movie is to allow a viewer to have a sort of a subjective experience of moving through this guy's experience. And the tapes, the tapes are a really powerful tool in that regard. He's a great creator of sound bites, really dynamic, sound bites where he sounds lucid and together, but if you let him speak, the cause and effect starts to come apart and the linkage starts to come apart, and you start to feel the irrationality of what he's experiencing. And so the way that we use the tapes was to sort of give you a more and more of a view into that disintegration. Yeah, he felt that he was on a mission, and I think, for me, there's a sort of a phenomenon of confirmation bias that's happening. He came up with, he had a narrative, and he was the victim in it, and he sought to confirm that narrative at every step. There's like a brief period of time where, a viewer might be going, well, maybe something really happened to this guy, but at a certain point in the story, there's a break, and you start to realize this is a man coming apart. It's interesting, when this event happened, it was front page news for one day, and then Ronald Reagan died. And so it was pushed to the back of the news cycle, and no one ever had a chance to actually metabolize the meaning of this thing. There was no resolution for this story. There was no resolution for the victims of the assault. And, it really felt to me like a story that deserved to be told, and told responsibly. In a time where, we have rage and resentment and venom, as sort of like a social and political norm. I mean, this is the way that we just talk, and, it's all around us is conflict. It seems like, there is no time since 2004 where this movie, would be more relevant than now. When like I said, I come from the scripted world, and when I first saw this story, my instinct was to write a script. I did write a script, and I pitched it around, but the deeper I got into the research, the more I realized, the archival footage and the tapes of Marvin are just so powerful that, it's a story that wants to be told as a documentary. I could for sure see, a scripted feature version of this thing. Of course. I mean, I would, like, all I can say is, like, I would buy a ticket,